Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining to Argo CD Contribution Experience meeting. Um, First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who participated in reviewing and managing pull requests. Blake, Michael, Nitish, Reggie, and a lot of others. Thank you a lot. I want to start with triaging issues. Then Nitish, on your side. I can see one issue.
Yeah, sorry. This is an issue where they're having issues where the UI is crashing when they're trying to load values. And I linked to uh yeah, here it is.
Mhm.
They're getting these undefined errors, and there's two other issues in 3.1 that seem similar. One is where they get a similar error when they have an application named login. And another is an error when they search for an application that they have under Prometheus, and it's only that application. There's something where like a status is coming back as undefined in all of these. And so I don't know what the root cause is, but there seems to be some linkage
It
between
looks like
3.1.
it's has a lot of thumbs ups and looks
Yeah.
like it's pretty easy to reproduce, I believe.
If it's all a field called status, I think it's possible that maybe it's related to removing the health status from individual resources in the application status field, which we did in 3.0, which makes it weird that this popped up in 3.1, but maybe they skipped a version. But that may or may not be it.
The other ones aren't status. So if you go to yeah,
Mhm.
go to this login one. Similar situation. Keep going. There'll be a.
Okay, so what he says, I fix it and it caused duplicate. No, it looks like it's just some styling issues.
Oh, never mind. This one's different. Go to the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was on
Similar.
reading chart.
Okay, so it's trying to read status and it's trying to read chart. Maybe it contains the same parent. Um,
There are actually two more issues that are related to progressive things
is it
that come up to
progressive?
3.1. They may be related, not necessarily, but maybe.
System project of Hmm. So it happens when he's doing search. Hmm. So, yes, it looks like similar, but potentially it can be two different issues.
Oh, but this one is 3.0.
Yeah, and it's also 3.0. Yeah.
Wait, no, that one is 2.9 actually. If you look at Argo CD server,
Okay, it's command line. Yeah, 2.9.
Uh, so on the first issue, which is 24296, I was reading the description and it says that the users, yeah, so like just before yeah, so you see it says when looking at my application set, I don't have application status field under status, which looks concerning
Uh-huh.
because um, I feel like I would chase that line of thought, like why, like how come the user doesn't have application status? It should be under status. I mean,
Oh,
if there is no application status, having trying to find an order would be difficult with progressive sync. So application status is crucial, right?
yeah, basically, how is it possible for the health.status field to not be populated by the application set controller?
Yeah.
Well,
Is it health.status?
if you say that it's pretty easy to reproduce, and again, I see a lot of likes, so potentially it's
So I'm looking at at an application containing a progressive sync application set that we're running it into it on 3.1.1. And I'm just scrolling through the application status field. None of these entries has a health field, even less a health.status field. So, oh, or is this in the resources field of the application? No, it's definitely the code that was linked as being problematic loops over appset.status.application status. So I don't know why it's not breaking the UI in our internal Argo CD instance.
he says that reporter says that it's potentially introduced by UI changes. So maybe you just, Michael, use different version of UI, something, or I don't know.
No, we're both running 3.1.1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's another thing they flagged where they said it was one specific build of 3.1. And that when they used they used off of master that they didn't have the issue.
Yeah, same exact version. I'm failing to reproduce it.
Yeah, so I can see that he accessing status in resource and status. Okay, upset status, application status. I think that what happens now, it's not about, yeah, it's probably related that application status not exist. So it's return empty resource because it cannot find resource because status not exist. And then after he's trying to accessing up resource status to print it, to print color, and seems it fails here. So no application status, then he didn't find resource, and as a result, he cannot get color here.
Sure. And he's saying the whole application status field is missing, which I suppose could happen if your application set controller is down or if there's an error. So this block of code should probably just return.
It should have some
error.
fallback, I believe, if app resource not exist.
Exactly. Yep. It should probably just show some type of warning in the UI.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I will put a comment on this. Let's move forward. Okay. Nitish, then any other items that you want to raise as part of triage?
Nothing from my side.
Okay, thank you for your help. I'm looking for volunteers for next week. I can see that you joined us.
Yeah, but I would like to do
Yeah.
secondary this week.
Thank you a lot.
It's been a while for me, and I don't think I've ever been primary, frankly. So might as well take that bullet.
What is the difference between primary and secondary? I have to understand once and for all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm equally puzzled.
If not go into details, it's kind of primary, it's someone who is pretty experienced, and secondary, someone who will support primary and learn from him. So kind of Blake is primary here, and
Yeah,
you
we should
ask
upgrade him.
some questions and assistance during triage. Okay.
Thanks.
So like if Yevgeny runs into issues where he's like trying to figure out what to do, he can ping Blake, who's also looking at the issues.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, I don't know, this one. Okay, so here's the item about load balancing. I went over it and I saw Michael answer before. So the whole point of it that at least how I understand that people complain that distribution is bad, and most of the things going to one of the controller and asking to ability to distribute by applications or projects. And even another comment was that they run Argo CD per cluster, and in such case they cannot distribute at all because they have just one destination cluster. Answer from just for recall, answer from Michael was that better to split it logically on few Argo CDs and to try to introduce solution. Sorry guys, my cat went crazy. I hope you not hear it. And the solution here is to introduce few Argo CD and split it logically, like one production and so on. Actually, who reported this? Is the author of report of this issue here?
We shouldn't spend too much time on this question. This is perhaps the most well discussed problem facing Argo CD long term. There's been tons written about it, like AWS has done tons of research into different algorithms for sharing load. It's an intractable problem. The person who added this to the document should just go and read what's already been written about this.
Yeah, you provided pretty a lot of details and discussions and so on, so people just can go and read inside.
I think.
Should we go ahead, Alex?
Yeah, I was saying like these issues that are open and we kind of don't have a fix for it, they just stay open as an enhancement. It would be good to have a label to just say, like, we're probably never gonna do it or address it and fix it if the situation doesn't change. Like, if there's not a Kubernetes feature that allows us to do better better sharding or better distribution, it's not worth the return on investment of having that. So that would be good if we could close the issue, but maybe have a label so we can find back the issue that has been closed. I'm not sure how we should triage them.
Well, I don't think it's an issue that will never be resolved per se. Like we introduced two new different sharding algorithms. They're both still in alpha, but they've been around for a year and a half now. So both round robin and like the consistent hash options are at a point where they could be, reasonable alternatives, and they could be moved into a mature state or become recommended.
But can we close this issue saying like, oh, this is handled by one of the algorithm and that's it?
Yeah, if we thought that it was fixed by like the consistent hashing distribution algorithm, which prevents reshuffling, then yeah, we might close it on that because it's more consistent. I don't know if it's all the way there though.
Yeah,
Because
I think that mostly people who are, I think that people are very interested in sharding by applications.
yeah.
And this is not really, I mean, we don't really cover that with any of the sharding algorithms because we're just working differently.
And sharding by applications is simply not viable. It's just not viable without a complete rewrite of the GitOps engine cluster cache and a completely different approach to the problem of understanding cluster state.
no, it's
So
really I think all of these are really sharding by cluster.
correct, which is the only viable option as long as the GitOps engine cluster cache works the way it does today. And I really don't see a path to making it work any other way.
Yeah, it's like the problem is the resources can switch applications, and then how do you like make sure you don't like create a duplicate resource and synchronize it between controllers?
You don't know the state of an application until you've analyzed the entire cluster. And you can't analyze the entire cluster without caching at the cluster level. I think I agree with Alex basically, though, that we should provide a list of links to related information. So different sharding algorithms, potentially open discussions of application level sharding, agent model, as well as just all the various optimizations you can do to improve controller performance.
Yeah, that's probably some addition to the like scaling Argo CD documentation page, where we could add these different links in there.
I can take it. It anyway fits into the triage that I'm doing for super high traffic issues. So I can provide those links and then maybe ask for a review to see whether
Yeah,
I missed something. And
if
then
we've documented it, I don't mind closing the issue because we would basically be saying like like we're not trying to optimize for evenly distributing resources across controllers. We're trying to optimize for cluster or cluster level allocation and stuff like that. So yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Reggie, for taking it. So, okay, we have some blog posts related to it. Michael, your one is next, related to job status.
Yeah. So there is a change currently merged on the master branch to add a health check for the cron job resource. This is a tricky thing to get right, in part because the cron job status field just doesn't contain much information. So it's kind of hard to tell the state of the cron job, but also just because it's difficult intuitively to explain whether you think a cron job is healthy or in some other state like progressing or suspended. So we deployed this health check into it as a custom health check. So we're not running master branch internally. We just manually deployed it so that we could just do some testing. And what we found was that there are a lot of applications at Intuit where people have, say a dozen top level resources being deployed in an application. And one of them is a cron job and it's suspended, but it's meant to stay suspended long term. So the problem with that situation is when we go to deploy a change, the Argo CD app health stays in a suspended state, and our CI pipelines can't tell whether the new change that was just deployed to the application has actually successfully been deployed because suspended is not considered a healthy state. There are similar problems with trying to ascertain whether a cron job is progressing or degraded. My preference here is that we have really a very basic, not very aggressive health check for cron job because it's just kind of difficult to describe, is the thing broken or is it running, or is it healthy? But I'm open to hearing other options. I also just want to mention that I think that the suspended state probably doesn't make sense, to mark the whole application suspended if a single resource is suspended. Because, for example, if an Argo rollout is in a suspended state and you have 20 rollouts in that application, I don't know why the whole application should be suspended because one resource is suspended. Anyway, my recommendation, basically revert the cron job health check and return, only what we can say with 100% certainty.
Okay. Any comments on it? Anyone meets the same problem, same use cases?
I mean, what's better, to not have a L check for an object like cron job or have a default N check? We already have an option that people can override the health of any health check, even the default health through a Lua script. And for the suspended issue, there's already a feature where on a single cron job, you can add an annotation and say, I don't want this specific object health to affect the aggregated health of the application. So we already have everything we need to not make that a breaking change on 3.2. The question is, do we want to keep the status quo, or do we want to attempt a default? Maybe it is not going to fit some people, CI pipeline, deployment pipeline, because they use the cron job in a certain way. They can give feedback on whether they think the default should be different or not. But right now we don't have much information to make any kind of decision.
I think any change that requires manual user intervention to avoid something being broken is a breaking change. So if we have to add an annotation to say opt out of reporting the health status for this cron job, we've made a breaking change. I think we probably do know enough to reject both the suspended and progressing states, just based on analysis without gathering real world data. Because I think just looking at it logically, marking an entire application as suspended because a single cron job is suspended, it doesn't make any sense. Basically, I think the current behavior of suspended states doesn't make sense, and we basically shouldn't use the suspended state any more than we absolutely have to, possibly not at all. So that's suspended. I think that that's basically going to break for most people. So the default shouldn't be to break most people. And then for
Yeah, I think I can agree with Michael that it should be like simple and predictable, and and people may rely a lot on like healthy state and healthy state and CD pipeline, and suspended is just like you don't know how to handle it. And I also agree that if users need to override, and it seems like substantial part of users may need to like put some override, then it's like a change we should probably want to be like, maybe we should do it opt-in basis instead or something, if possible. But I don't know. I don't know if what problem exactly the health check tries to solve. Like basically, I don't know. I've been like working on like various DevX stuff for like more than a year, and I haven't seen any problems with like cron job not having like a more sophisticated health check. So my 2 cents would be that I would rather stick on like more like simple side of things.
And then for progressing, I don't think the progressing state ever makes intuitive sense for a cron job, because if you take a deployment, if you're working on rolling out a new image tag, it makes sense to say that we're progressing because our desired state is to have 10 replicas with the new image. We only have 2 replicas with the new image. We're progressing. With a cron job, what does it mean to be progressing? Like, does it mean a job is currently running? Well, that's just like a replica running under a deployment consistently. That's just a healthy state. I can't think of an example of a state for a cron job that makes intuitive sense to be marked as progressing.
Yeah, I agree. It only makes sense in the context of jobs that are in like sync hooks or something, because then you're modifying a sync operation. But like having a cron job updating the status to either suspended or progressing, it's it's like the same thing. It's just having your sync operation be progressing because your app is running. Like it doesn't make sense. So I agree with you 100% on this.
Okay, so decision is to revert for now, this change, and resync it.
I think the degraded state might make sense. Alex, I know you made an upstream issue in Kubernetes to ask them to add some more information to the status so that we can make that a reliable state. And I think that would make sense. Like if the most recent job failed, maybe it makes sense to mark it as degraded.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we have enough information in the status field to implement that yet.
With the current information, so if the job is degraded, when it's scheduled a new job that could fix the degraded state, basically it will flickers between degraded and then progressing and either degraded again or healthy based on the job result. If there's no progressing state, and when the situation is when it's running a job instead of being progressing, it's healthy, then we have a cron job object that will oscillate between degraded and healthy, because whenever it schedule a new job, it will go back to the healthy state because we cannot determine that the last job succeeded or failed because the last job is currently running. So if we just want to revert the progressing state, we have an object that will switch from degraded to healthy every now and then, which is
Yeah.
still better than nothing and not knowing that your application is degraded when your app is failing, when your cron job is failing.
That makes sense to me. Degraded because the job failed, and then when it reschedules the job, it's going to go back into synced state and then switch to or healthy state, because it's not, I guess it's progressing because it's scheduling an additional pod. So it'd be like if your pod got deleted, it's degraded, it gets rescheduled by Kubernetes.
I think the initial situation would be to have the cron job as progressing, but not have the application as progressing. And that goes back to the same thing with suspended. Like the cron job should be suspended, but should the application be suspended? So there's that concept that we don't really have yet. We just have one annotation to say like don't report any status, even degraded, to the aggregated L. But we all have that concept of having an object status and having the overall application health. And in some cases, like suspended rollout, suspended cron job, running cron job, it doesn't make sense. It's not a really one-on-one mapping. And we don't have any feature in Argo to control that behavior very well.
Yeah.
I think the use case that you're describing, though, is already satisfied. If I want to know my cron job failed recently and there's a new job progressing, all that information is available in the resource tree. I see the old job, it's marked as failed, and I see the current job, it's marked as progressing. And that's not bubbled up to the cron job level, but that's fine because I can just visually inspect it.
Yeah, I do like the idea of degraded when the last job that ran failed.
I do like that.
That makes perfect sense to me. The progressing doesn't make sense if the job is running. It only makes sense if the pod is still being scheduled, because we're not thinking about what's happening once the pod is running, and healthy. We're only, in general, we only think about like, okay, once the pod is running and it's healthy, then it's done. It's done. It's out of our hands. It's only if it then fails, or if it fails to get to a healthy state or something, that it would be degraded or progressing.
Yeah, I think we can remove the progressing state and wait for either upstream Kubernetes to see if they give us more information than the cron job status to be able to not flicker from degraded to LT whenever a new job is scheduled.
But overall, seems like a very difficult problem to solve, even like with flickering, because we cannot probably wait for a job because it can take like a while technically, and like cron job itself, it's pretty much just like similar to just a CRD. So it's because this like not direct link between cron job and jobs. It's difficult, and flickering is also not great. I would honestly, my gut feel so far is just like if we cannot guarantee like some stable results, maybe we should just like, okay, not set any expectations to the user. So maybe like even degrade it we shouldn't do. But I don't have like a strong opinion on this. Like I understand the desire to show that, hey, if like something is off with a cron job, then probably we should report an up as degraded. But also like if we just schedule a new job and it like resets the status, we probably cannot just show healthy or something. We need to like maybe save the last state and like only update to healthy when like the job succeeded or something. But it seems like there are a lot of edge cases which are like maybe need more like rethinking how to handle. And yeah, I don't know if it's possible.
I think I'm cool with either degraded, give it a try and see if people complain, or just don't change the health check at all until we get more from upstream Kubernetes.
Okay, let's move to other question. Marcus, your one is next.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Marcus. I'm not a regular contributor. This is my proposal. So this is basically there's an object cluster profile from SIG multicluster, and it's intended to represent clusters for the purpose of stuff like multi-cluster management. And my proposal is to create a new generator that would be able to use the cluster profiles as the representation of the cluster. And yeah, just wanted to get some people's thoughts on this and feedback.
By the way, I love cluster profile and SIG multi-cluster. Any reason why a new generator versus using the plugin generator?
Yeah, so currently the way to do this would be with the plugin, and I don't know if it's possible to use the plugin and use the cluster profile directly. Right now, what we have is like the plugin that like creates and like manages the secrets, and the secrets will correspond to the cluster profiles. But it would be preferable to just use the cluster profiles. But I don't know what's possible with Argo and the plugin generator. So maybe that's something that could happen. But
I really like this as a first class feature, especially since it's coming from a Kubernetes SIG. I think just the user experience of being able to have this out of the box is really
Yeah, I don't think it can only be an app set generator because Argo needs secrets for the cluster to exist. So at some point we need to have a secret for Argo to consider that cluster as valid. If it's not built in, we need, as Marcus said, something to create those secret, otherwise, and keep them in sync. Otherwise, yeah, we need to modify Argo to discover secrets or discover cluster in another way that is not secrets.
I think what would be really sick long term would be to have a cluster profile API provider. I think that there's a way to basically implement your own so that we could wrap Argo CD's existing secrets with a cluster profile wrapper. Then you could use the same cluster profile API to get the list of clusters for both the app set and Argo CD. But also, I think it's fine to duplicate it for now. Like if you do a list select or a list generator or a get generator, you can generate invalid applications where the cluster isn't actually registered with Argo CD. That's not a new problem. Like you just have to keep those in sync.
Okay.
about the needing secrets, so if we make a new generator, we shouldn't need secrets, right? Because something like the cluster, I looked into the cluster generator code, and that seems to be just where it gets the list of clusters that are registered to create applications and stuff. So
at the end of the day, you have to have a cluster in order, like a cluster secret, in order for Argo CD to connect to the destination cluster and actually do any GitOps stuff. But just to get the list and generate the applications, you don't need those secrets to exist.
Okay.
Okay, so looks like it's nice to add. Do we need some sort of open pull request for this proposal, or we just okay to start implement it and introduce it?
I think I'd like to see a spec of the inputs to the cluster profile generator, as well as the expected output parameters. Basically, similar to what the docs page that currently exists for each generator is. I'd like to have that as a proposal. I don't think we have to have the full like PR with a proposal and a markdown file and all that, though.
Okay, so just extend it, Marcus, and we're good to go. Thank you for proposal. Reggie, you're next.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 4 minutes. I will try to make it quick. So there are some regressions around the progressive sync integration into Argo CD 3.1. And so currently one of the things that happens is that because we decided that on the application details view, we also want to display the progressive sync status if it's relevant for this application. So we're actually right now need the access like from the application to the application set, from its parent application set. And one of the errors that the users have experienced is that if the user has the permissions for the application, but does not have the permissions for the application set, that it's basically its parent, then there is a failure. And so one question is, how do we want to treat it from RBAC perspective? Does it now mean that, I mean, we don't know in advance, right, for which applications the rolling sync is even relevant, so it doesn't feel right just to have those read-only roles or something have also permissions for the application set. But so first question is, how do you want to treat it from RBAC perspective? And then the other thing is that currently users who don't even use the application progressive sync features are impacted by an error in their application view. And this is something that Atif Ali, I think he's from Red Hat, if I'm not mistaken, this is something that he's working on, basically to enable this field only for applications that it's relevant to enable it for, meaning that they're part of an application set with a progressive sync. Because currently this field is for all the applications that have a parent of application set, I think. And yeah.
I think we should just add application sets to the read-only role. To me, that's what read-only means, is you can read everything. That would solve at least part of the problem.
And so it basically would mean that for any custom role that users have, when they give permissions on an application, they basically would also give that role permissions on the application set, yeah?
Read-only is a global role. So this would only solve the problem if the user has been granted the read-only role. I think that for most organizations, though, most people who are logged in get the read-only role. If you've like manually set up your RBAC in a way that grants access to the application, but not the generating application set, then you'll still get an error. And I think we can improve the error experience, but I think that's kind of just how it ought to be. Like if you're not allowed to see the app set, you're not allowed to see the app set.
Yeah, you know, but with respect to now to the fact that application should know about its parent in order to be able to display the progressive sync relevant info, it kind of, you know, would mean that those permissions would be needed.
Maybe, and like maybe you could pass that information down on an annotation or something, but that just seems like such a far edge case where I'm willing to grant someone read access to the application, but not read access to the parent application set. I think we're probably going to solve the problem for the vast majority of people by just making sure that people have access to read the application set. And we can make that a lot easier by adding it to the default read-only role.
Okay, and then just documented that for custom roles, right? Okay, good. So this is one thing. And then the other question is, if we're talking about the user experience with regard to the error, what happens if the user does not have the permissions on the application set for whichever reason? Do we, in this case, want to disclose this information that the user does not have the permissions, or we just disable this progressive sync thingy from the UI entirely?
I think you remove it from the UI. You call can I. If the user doesn't have permission, they just don't see it.
Yeah. And that information, you know, maybe we could have a console.log that's like, hey, we disabled this UI element because of this reason, just to make it a little bit easier to diagnose it. But agreed, just hide it.
Yeah, cool. Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Reggie. I think sadly we're all for today. We don't have any time, so I will just move the rest of the items to backlog, and we can discuss it on next meeting. Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a good day. See you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.